From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, it's Just the Tip-Sters with Melissa Morgan.
Well.
If you've got a tip for Melissa, a hot tip on a cold case, an interesting murder mystery you want to know more about, the secret gateway to the land of missing socks, anything, tell us about it by calling the Tip-Ster hotline at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837, or send an email to jttipsters@gmail.com. You just might hear your tip on the podcast. And now here's your host. If you say pecan, she'll say pecan, and she'll be right, goddammit, Melissa Morgan!
And more cowbell, goddammit. Are you ever going to get tired of hearing that?
I think I get the idea.
Sorry. I know. It's Kristen's fault for sending it to me. I just love it so much. I'm just going to fucking bang on it at the beginning of every... Yeah, pecan. What sort of asshole says pecan?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't, but a lot
No, it's pecan.
I think maybe it's the southern thing. I don't know.
You know, I'm from Kentucky. Now, granted, it was neutral during the Civil War, but everyone, thinks that my mother was a coal miner, even though she was a real estate broker. But anyway, I never in my life said pecan.
I know you didn't. I've never said it either, but I've heard a lot of people say it, and usually the people who say it are from the southern part of the country.
Whatever, losers. I can't even right now. I can't.
You'll deal.
I don't know that I will deal. Pecan is one of those things that's going to get, it's pecan. I'm sorry. It's going to be, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe you said that. Now I'm just going to think about it all day long.
Yes.
I'm going to worry and fret.
We were watching a TV show this morning at breakfast, and somebody mentioned that whole pecan thing.
Full disclosure, it's literally called Trisha's Southern Kitchen because it's Trisha Yearwood on the Food Network, and she...
See?
Yeah, but that's not the point. That's not the point. What was interesting, and I do have to say this, is that they showed a clip from her first appearance at the Grand Ole Opry, and it was 1992. And she was like, "I'm so excited, I don't know where to stand and what to do. Oh my God." And then here we are in 2018. She's like, "So you take the short rib and then you cut it on the bias."
It's pretty funny.
Her accent is gone. And it's like, what, was that even real? I never had an accent. I mean, I have ever since I was, a kid. And then I did notice a couple of people I went to school with. I thought, no, that's kind of a funny little southern drawl. But it was a few kids. And then because I didn't travel a lot as a youngster, I didn't know about other accents. I mean, I still remember being horrified at getting a Christmas coloring book, and there was it was Santa or Christmas all around, the world, and in Hawaii, Santa had on a Trader Joe's shirt and shorts and was surfing, and I'm like, my 6-year-old self is like shutting down. I'm like, no. Santa
really
can't wear a Hawaiian shirt. Yeah, I mean, I'm really very, very black and white, and I just had no idea about,
But that's what makes you so good at analyzing murder cases.
I don't know about that. I think you need to be gray, very gray, and I'm not gray.
Well, no, you're not. You're very colorful. And hey, you know what? I just realized this is our 50th episode.
No.
This is number 50.
I'll be damned. Well, happy 50th anniversary, darling.
Thank you. I think this is really cool.
Yes.
At the beginning of the year when we started this thing, who knew we'd get to 50 episodes?
No, I didn't think we'd get to 5. So here we are at the big 50. Wow. Amazing.
We just want to thank all those tipsters and remind everybody, keep calling.
Yes, thanks.
832-TIPSTER.
Thank you for the amazing and wonderful support. The tipsters, the listeners, the people that email and call. We are very grateful for all of your support. So anyway, back to what I was saying. I had no idea how I sounded until I started managing comedy clubs in Cincinnati. And comics came from all across the country. And one in particular, a couple people would say, "Well, you don't have an accent." I'm like, no one does. I don't know what you're talking about. But one guy from Chicago said, you know, what you have is a broadcaster flat accent. And I'm like, what? And he said it's like it's called a Midwest flat accent that people on the news want to use. Like they don't overemphasize one part of a word. Or I just thought that was, I mean, he'd known me 2 days and heard me talking a little bit, like, get on stage and do your 40 minutes, you fucker, and leave my waitresses alone and stop drinking. That's probably all I heard me say. But he was like, you have a very broadcast standard voice is what he said. And I was like, what are you talking about, you nut job? But and then you get older and you move and you hear other people. And of course, Mark makes fun of my non-accent. But sometimes when we go back to Kentucky, as he has pointed out, if you're standing in line at Kroger.
Yes. You can hear, there's three accents you hear in northern Kentucky. And that, generally that part of Ohio. But in that part of northern Kentucky, right near Cincinnati, you hear people who speak in broadcast standard, like Melissa. But then you'll also hear the flat-out hillbilly. You mean they'll talk like this?
I've never heard.
I've heard that. I mean, that's but the most common other accent I hear is what I would call like a middle Ohio Dayton accent. It's almost Southern, but it's not. It's very unique. And I recognize it because I used to work with a guy when I was a young man, worked with a guy from that part of the country, and he had that accent.
Oh, okay.
And it just, every time I hear it, I go, oh, that sounds like Carl.
Interesting.
But anyway.
Because I honestly, that first thing you did sounded like Foghorn Leghorn. I've never heard anyone I'll say son.
No. That's not what, it's more like this. It's more like it's very, anyway.
Oh, my beloved, Ohio Valley, Kentucky, Indiana people. Please forgive my husband. He knows not of what he speaks. So, accents aside, this is a story that came to us from Tip-Ster Anja, and it meant so much to her as a writer, an author, an actress, and a writing an English professor at several colleges, that when she was in a writing program, a master's program in Fresno, she actually wrote a poem about it. And it meant so much to her that she collected all the articles she could get. She was in Fresno for a limited amount of time, but she collected all the articles she could get on them and saved them. And they're in beautiful, pristine condition. And I will be FedExing that back to you soon, Anja. I really appreciate the research, the time, and the effort you put into this, and for sharing it with us. And I've done some additional research on my own, and it's one of those cases that will stick in my craw, because I hate open cases. I hate them with all of my heart. I prefer to discuss the ones with a happy ending, because again, I am black or white. And I like it when things get tied up in a beautiful bow and somebody gets in trouble for what they've done, and whatever small modicum of justice, any friend or family member that is around for that to see, that's the only thing that brings me any sort of peace. So these cases are the ones that haunt me, bother me. And this case is not unlike a lot of other cases involving missing women across the world, but it's interesting in that it struck such a chord with Anja, and it's still an open case. 19 years later, still an open case. The Fresno PD believes that they can solve it, and I want to have the same faith that they do. But it's a tough one, and the elements, the other people involved are still alive. I don't know for how much longer, but I'm really hoping that I wouldn't even care if it's a deathbed confession. I just feel like we all know after hearing this case, someone knows something. And if you know something, I have the number for the Fresno Police Department that's completely anonymous. We have our number. You do not have to tell us any information except a tip that you might have. We have our email address. You can email us. But if you know anything about this case, let us know. This is the case of Sandra Kerby, who went missing July 10th of 1999. And can you hit that audio clip, Producer Mark?
Fresno police are confident someone knows something, and they believe they'll eventually solve the Sandra Kerby case. It's been 15 years since the 52-year-old Fresno teacher went missing. The case has grown cold despite her family's hope for closure. Action News anchor Stephanie Stone talked to detectives about what they need to catch a break in this case.
The halls are quiet at Gibson Elementary, where Sandra Kerby taught first grade. The students are out for summer break and the gates are shut. The pink ribbons and posters, which once decorated that same fence, have long since been taken down. 15 years later, the lead investigator on the case is a police chief in a different city. But the Kerby case still hangs over his head.
Probably the first case that comes to mind because it's unsolved and it's going to hang out there forever. I've been involved in some other high-profile cases that had some sort of a conclusion, and this one just hasn't, and it'll stay with me probably for the rest of my life.
It was Chief Greg Garner who realized this case was more than it seemed on the surface.
There was a number of circumstantial pieces of information that we were able to pull together that indicated there may have been foul play involved.
Kerby's Ford Explorer was later found in the Target shopping center at River Park, her keys and purse locked inside. There have been searches and press conferences, and police turned their focus on Sandra's husband, Frank Kerby. Homicide detectives who are still working the case today say that focus has not changed.
We still believe that Frank Kerby is a person of interest. We would love to talk to him. Hopefully he'll come forward and talk to us someday.
Frank Kerby told us he has no comment on the matter, and Ledbetter says detectives need new leads and they need to find Sandra. In the meantime, her family holds out hope with every passing year. They, like police, believe someone knows something.
I know that anniversaries like this must be terribly hard on them and even me, and I was working at it from a professional basis. It's just hard, and I'm sure that they would like closure in some form.
But he says until then, her family and the community in which she lived and worked still remember her and still believe answers will one day surface. In Fresno, Stephanie Stone, ABC 30, Action News.
So you get a small taste of what Sandra was like. She was an elementary school teacher in Fresno and had been for many decades, and she was apparently stellar at what she did. The principal of the school where she taught said that she had an ability to teach all students at whatever level they were at. It's a beautiful description of her because it can be problematic in public schools with large classrooms, not enough assistants or aides to help. And apparently Sandra was one of those special people that kept an eye on everyone and made sure everyone was moving at the same pace, the same level. Her students came back many years after they had gotten through school to thank her for her personalized attention. She just seems like the salt of the earth. So Sandra Lynn Kerby on July 10th of 1999 was visiting her youngest daughter, Jamie. She and Frank Kerby have two daughters, Michelle and Jamie. They had been married 34 years. It was 8 days after their 34th anniversary. And some troubled spots in their marriage were pretty recent. I'm a big believer that anniversaries mean a lot. As we had found out in the bike path rapist / bike path killer case, Altemio Sanchez killed a woman 16 years after the first time that he killed someone. It's the exact date. I always find it fascinating that Joseph James DeAngelo would rape and kill someone on his wedding anniversary, although they were separated on his birthday. It was like a present to himself. He, got to kill and rape someone. So these anniversaries are a little closer together in date. They're not on the exact date, but it all comes together in a very odd confluence in July of 1999. So it's the summer break. Sandra's not teaching, and she is visiting her younger daughter. And she says she's going shopping at about 11:30 a.m. July 10th of 1999 is a Saturday. So she goes shopping, leaves her daughter's house after visiting her in the morning, says, I'm going shopping. I don't know if she didn't tell her daughter where, but it's odd to me that it took 4 days to find her 1993 white Ford Explorer abandoned in the parking lot of Target because it was approximately 2 miles from her daughter's house. They had actually referred to it as walking distance, so I don't know if maybe there was a shortcut that you could go through her daughter's development and get to Target, maybe a back way that would, cut off some time. But driving distance, it was 2 miles from her daughter's house, and it took 4 days to find her abandoned vehicle, and it was found by a coworker. That's also an odd thing to me. So she leaves the house at 11:30. She never returns. 12 and a half hours later, a little after midnight, her husband, Frank Kerby, reports her missing. 4 days later, a coworker finds her, July 14th, finds her abandoned Ford Explorer in the Target parking lot. Inside, her prescription reading glasses, her purse, wallet, credit cards, and the keys to the Explorer locked in the car. Everything's locked in the car. Also, Sandra Kerby is 5'5", and the front seat is moved back to a level that she couldn't reach the pedals. Now, doing a little Gladys Kravitz snooping, Frank Kerby is still active on social media at the age of 74 in 2018. And he strikes me as a guy who doesn't know how to say no, or doesn't know how to accept the word no. He was a big jock in high school, many sports, football, golf. He ended up teaching as a coach at different schools, junior highs, high schools, and then became sort of the head of the wrestling referees in the entire school district of Fresno where he and his wife both worked. So he was sort of over top of all the referees for wrestling. There are pictures of him on his social media. The one I found the most fascinating was he and 10 other gentlemen. There's a total of 11 of them standing for a picture. They're all wearing their black and white striped shirts, I guess for some sort of their referees' uniforms with whistles around them. And Frank is in the back row, and he is by far the tallest man in the picture. By far. So out of 11 men, 10 of them, let's just say they can't all be midgets, he's has to be over 6 feet tall. He has to be over 6 feet tall. There's a picture of him standing next to a stand-up golf bag on his own social media page. And I did the research, and stand-up golf bags typically come in at an average of 36 inches. So that's 3 feet. He's probably 2.5 times the size of his stand-up golf bag that he's next to. So let's say he has on, golf cleats. So that maybe gives him an inch and a half. He's clearly over 6 feet tall. I'm not going to say he's 6'4", but he's probably 6'2" if he's an inch. And Sandra Kerby's 5'5". So she could not have driven her car, her Ford Explorer, to Target unless she had on stripper heels. And she really didn't seem like that kind of girl. She was beautiful, 54, had been married 30 years, had 2 grown daughters, loved her life and her job, but she wasn't, wearing mini skirts and stripper heels. She was going to Target on a Saturday, which everyone hopes they can do in complete and utter safety. So after she's reported missing, it comes out that Frank had been having an affair with a 20-year, his junior woman that also worked at the school district where he worked. And he had been back and forth living with her on and off for a year. And 3 days after Sandra goes missing, on July 13th, this woman, unnamed woman, approaches the police and says, look, not only did I break up with him on July 4th, I think, he will not stop harassing me. She broke up with him 2 days after their 34th anniversary, which is July 2nd. She said he harasses me constantly with phone calls, with emails, with letters, and she provided proof. And the sad thing is, he had moved back into the family home with Sandra 8 days earlier, and because she had broken up with him, or 6 days earlier, she had broken up with him. And he is asking his mistress for money back that he had given her to pay for rent.
Oh, that's a sweet guy right there. That's
The harassment, and I know that he was harassing her, I guess, because he wanted to get back together with her, but it's just funny to me that a grown-ass 54-year-old man harasses his 32-year-old girlfriend. I want my $2,000 back. It was apparently a lot of emails and voicemails where he's screaming, I want my $2,000. So, yeah. But then, ironically, Sandra goes missing July 10th. And I'll be darned if maybe all of that money is water under the bridge to Frank, because he then proposes to his girlfriend.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Speaking for the male species, I'm embarrassed.
I'm embarrassed for the human species. Men and women behave, this badly. We mostly hear about the male part because very few women have either the strength or, the ability to kill someone who pisses them off and then be okay with it. It does happen, absolutely, we know that, but it's a lot more men than women. Whether I'm not gonna debate whether it's testosterone or money or age or I don't know, but he asked his mistress to marry him, and she's like, yeah, I'm going to the police.
That's a good, very
I
smart.
think so.
That's a good move, smart move.
By the way, my wife's missing. I have an engagement ring for you. Yeah, proposes to her while still married to Sandra a few days after their 34th anniversary. So I think if anything, we can say Frank is not good at timing.
No, he's a little erratic.
Timing?
Yeah.
Timing, yeah. Yeah, he's not good at timing. So what is heartbreaking is that it appears that the daughters are split in their belief systems. Michelle Kerby, the couple's oldest daughter, feels that the affair her father had has nothing to do with her mother's disappearance. And Jamie Kerby, the younger daughter who was with her mother just before she left to go on the fated shopping excursion, I believe thinks her father knows something, at least. If he's not involved, at least he knows something. So Sandra Kerby taught first grade at Gibson Elementary School, and she was actually going to Target to plan on buying some supplies for the beginning of school in August. She's that teacher. She's one of those people. Her coworkers had gotten together and gotten a reward fund together for her, and it was something like $8,319. And that lets you know that these are people who don't, have a huge amount of money at their disposal and yet are giving what they can to have anyone come forward with a tip that can help find their friend, their coworker, their teacher. It's a beautiful gesture, and it really kind of cleaves your heart in half when you hear about it. So detectives believe that she did not walk away from her vehicle. She was not sick. There was nothing in her medical background that suggested she would become disoriented and lost and just walk away from her life. She was having a lovely visit with her daughter, and then suddenly she's gone. All of her belongings are in her vehicle, and she has disappeared. So, according to detectives, Frank Kerby was cooperating, as they like to say, in the first couple of days after she went missing. And after the third day, he retained his 35-year friend from high school, attorney Malakian. They were both on the football and wrestling team together, Alan Malakian. And he says, he's not going to take a lie detector test. He is on a pain medication for his shoulder, and that's going to throw off the results. And when asked if he would consider taking a lie detector test at a future date, he said no. And his attorney said, I'm not a big believer in lie detectors. And I'm not either. I've seen way too many instances where someone took a lie detector test and passed it, and they ended up being the perpetrator. And I've seen way too many cases where someone took a lie detector test, they were found deceptive, and they had absolutely nothing to do with anything. There are so many things to throw lie detector tests off toward the good or the bad, depending on who you are and if you know how to manipulate them. A lot of people think they're smart enough to manipulate them. I know me, and I am an alien, and while I am not on pain medication, I'm quite sure if I took a lie detector test, they would probably arrest me for like the Lindbergh kidnapping and the Holocaust. I mean, I carry guilt for things I've never thought of and things that other people have done. So I'm not a big believer in lie detector tests either. I probably would take one if something, God forbid, happened to Mark. You know, I would probably be like, okay, you can take it, but I just want you to know I have a blood pressure cuff and it says my blood pressure is 53/37, which would mean I'm dead. So I'm not a big believer in them, but I guess they measure many things. Blood pressure, sweat, heart rate. It's sort of fascinating, but I don't put a whole lot of stock in them either. So Frank's 32-year-old girlfriend ended up dropping her complaint against Frank in August, a month after Sandra disappeared, because she said, you guys haven't done anything in a long time. So it's been a month, Sandra's missing, and his girlfriend is pissed because the police haven't been concentrating on her complaint where he called and harassed her. They might have something else to do, little girly.
Yeah, that's a little little selfish, maybe.
Yeah. She's like, you guys haven't done anything in a long time. He called and asked for his $2,000 back. Would you like us to concentrate on the missing woman?
Yeah.
Whose life is either in danger or ended? Or do you want to talk about the $2,000 that your married boyfriend wants back? She sounds like she's not at all,
She sounds actually like a perfect match for him, to tell you the truth.
She does. They really should probably end up together. So, of course, Frank Kerby's attorney, when it says, when he's notified that police are going to have to drop the complaint because she refuses to push it any further because she says they're not doing enough, he says, well, this doesn't really, this doesn't have any effect on us. It doesn't help or hurt the situation. Really? Really, counselor? I think it might hurt. I think it might hurt to find out. Now, I do have to say, I'm not sure how this was handled. This is no offense to the Fresno PD. But it took 6 months. It took 6 mother effing months before they got a warrant to search Frank Kerby's home. They took his computer, boxes of records, etc. And they also found Sandra's diary that they could authenticate, as far as we know, that said she knew about his affair. Well, she probably had to know because he was living with his girlfriend part of the time, the last year of her life. We're assuming that her life is no longer. So for the year, from late 98 through middle 99, he was living back and forth between the two women. So yeah, she had to know. It's not like Frank has, he sleeps in his car some nights. It was very, yeah. So she had, I think it's fascinating that she had a diary or a journal. Most people probably entered that kind of stuff on computers, but it took the homicide detective 6 months to get any access to anything. 6 months later, I just find that.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, I find that a little bizarre. So, just an aside, more snooping around Frank Kerby's social media finds that he's a New York Yankees fan. So you know what that means.
Okay, I hate him now.
See? That's all
I hate him now. He's guilty. He's guilty.
See, I told you. I knew you'd come over to my side. I'm just kidding. I don't think there's any. Yeah. It would be really bad if Sandra went to Target and some nut on a Saturday, on a busy Saturday, just snatched her out of her SUV. No. But let's just say that happened. It would be so bad for Frank, living under an umbrella of suspicion for the last 19 years. Yeah. No. Because very few people are going to snatch you out of your SUV in a parking lot at Target and then move the driver's seat back. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Move the driver's seat back in your car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to leave your purse, your ID, your cell phone, all of it on the front seat. But hold on. I got duct tape and some rope and some chloroform. But I got to get in here and move your seat back. Okay. Click, click,
Yeah,
click,
just
click.
a second,
Okay,
just
there we
a second,
go. There
just
we
a
go.
second,
Yeah,
yeah.
just hold on. Don't move. Don't move. Yeah. So it's, there's also some sort of discrepancy, a time discrepancy. Now, Frank said that he was at home all day at the family home. And Jamie, the younger daughter, who is definitely split from her sister on what happened and the timing, said that he wasn't home. He called me at 5:30 and said he's on his way home after playing golf. Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So he was either at home all day and Sandra just never showed back up, or he called his daughter as an alibi at 5:30 and said, I'm on my way home after playing golf all day. Uh-huh. So which is it, Frank? Frank, who's 6'2" and moved his wife's seat back multiple times to fit him. Anyway.
Or not, because
No,
you know,
it
he's
could be, allegedly.
He's presumed innocent, but
No,
you know,
he's not.
again,
He's a person of interest.
I hear this stuff over and over again in these stories, and it's amazing how long the police wait.
Yeah, I was shocked at the 6-month timeline. I gotta be honest. I mean, if he talks to you the first couple of days that his wife is missing, and then he lawyers up, which is absolutely his right. And I know that, anyone who, has a brain, it knows to do that no matter who you are, guilty or innocent. That's just what you do so that you are not, harassed.
Yes, exactly. But the fact that he hasn't, he should be arrested by now, don't you? I guess I don't.
There's not enough.
I cannot be
to arrest him.
I could
as
never
you
be
know.
a DA.
No, I couldn't either. I would, the law is a beautiful, fascinating thing to me, but it's also problematic in what you need to prove a case. And it's a nobody case, which absolutely has been tried and won. This is all circumstantial. Phone records show that he called his daughter at 5:30 and at 9:30, probably asking, "Where's your mom?" Alibi calls is what I would call them. He said he was at home. He called from his cell phone, so he was not at home. I'm sure they have more information than they can release to the public. I get it. I totally get it. But it's horrifying. And one of the things I found on his social media is that he has turned his backyard into a putting green.
Now that's just...
I know.
Oh, okay.
Still lives in the same home that he shared with Sandra. Don't know if he has a girlfriend. Don't care. But his backyard is a multi-hole putting green.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So Frank Kerby, for the last 19 years, has lived his life. He did take a leave of absence from his position at the Kerman School District. It was about a month, and came back to work. And I guess after so many years, the stink of having a missing spouse maybe isn't so strong. It's still horrifying to me that he's allowed to live his life. He's allowed to go to Target and be unencumbered. He's moved on, obviously. I don't know that he has any interaction with his youngest daughter, Jamie. I know his daughter, Michelle, seemed a little as years went on, seemed a little more, somebody knows something. She didn't actually say, my dad. She hasn't come out and said, I don't believe my father is involved. I don't believe my father is not involved. She hasn't said anything like that. But you can tell the family is fractured, for sure.
See, that's the other sad thing that happens in these cases, right?
Absolutely.
These families get broken up because there's just one asshole that, well, never mind.
There's never just one victim. There's never one victim, whether it's a missing person or a homicide or an accident. There's never just one victim. We have no idea how far-reaching the results are when something bad happens to one of us. And I firmly believe it's because we're all one. And when one of us is hurt, when one of us is missing, it affects all of us, whether we know who that is or know what happened. We can still feel it. And that is why we need to stick together, protect each other as much as we can, and ourselves. And when something like this happens, the littlest thing we may have seen or heard could be the thing that is the most important. And this case affected Anja so deeply during her time in Fresno. She wrote a poem about it, and I'm going to end this episode with her poem. When Anja was taking her master's program writing course, after Sandra disappeared, the instructor asked one day in class, what precautions do you take when you're walking to your car? And the men in the classroom said, I walk to my car. And the women said, I put my keys between my fingers in case anyone's following me. Most people now have key fobs. That would suck. But put your keys between your fingers, so if you have to scratch someone who's coming at you, you can with your keys. It's much stronger with metal than your fingers. I have a small canister of mace on my key ring. I am constantly looking behind me as I'm walking to my car. I quickly get in my car, and when I get in the car, I lock the doors immediately. Before I lock the doors, I look in the back seat to make sure no one's there. So, being a man walking to your car, and men have absolutely been mugged, injured, murdered, attacked, but it's a different feeling than being a woman walking to your car. Now, granted, most people end up missing or dead because it's someone they know. And in this case, it's probably someone Sandra knew intimately. But let's just say it wasn't. Let's just say on a busy Saturday in July in Fresno in a Target parking lot, someone had other plans and took her. Anja's poem speaks to that. And all of us need to remember to be safe and not only look out for ourselves, but look out for others. Know that if you have any information about the Sandra Kerby case, if you lived in Fresno at the time, if you know anything, feel free to call the Fresno Police Department. They are open to hearing anything you have to say at 559-498-1414. 559-498-1414. You can call us at 832-Tip-Ster. You can email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. And this poem by Anja just shows you how she's never met Sandra Kerby. She didn't know Sandra Kerby from anyone else. But she knew that if one of us is missing, all of us are hurting. And the poem is entitled Terror Zone. Another woman gone, disappeared from a busy shopping mall parking lot, mysteriously swallowed up by some man, eager to eat her warm and helpful smile. Her white sports utility vehicle left behind loaded with bags of groceries, melting ice cream. Her open handbag, tinted eyeglasses, and shopping list, lying cradled on the soft leather seat. Her cell phone battery gone dead. Her oldest daughter makes the TV plea, "Please return my mother. She's a really nice woman." Nice woman, stalking safety in terror zones, between parked cars and mall entrances, between garages and back home doorways, trying to cover our backs with caution, wishing we could find the hidden him, break him down, bone by bone, stuff his sanity inside out and make it fit inside our skin, force terror down his throat so he'll choke on our fear and gag on our flesh. So mothers and daughters won't have to plead for each other. Let us be. So again, if you know anything about the Sandra Kerby case, please feel free to call Fresno PD. Call us, email us, and more cowbell.
And remember, that phone number is 832-Tip-Ster. That's 832-847-7837. And the email address is jttipsters@gmail.com. Melissa, want a cookie? Good girl.